today's different because we were gonna do a podcast on cultural appropriation, basically, but instead we ended up getting in a conversation about
generational gaps in seeking validation, delayed
yeah.
gratification with the younger generations, struggling with that within the modern workforce.
But it was fun. It ended up being we just ended up having to record just one of our regular conversations.
You know, I don't disagree with what you're saying in that recording that you sent me.
I think one of the most interesting things or biggest changes as you grow up and as you get older is the amount that you're willing to do, the amount of work you're willing to put in without getting any credit and without worrying if it's necessarily paying off in the short term or even expecting that, okay, and tomorrow I'll just be off and I won't do anything. You get more okay with just doing a little bit each day. You just work. And so I wonder if more people were able to develop that earlier. I feel like they would get so much more out of their work, out of life, and they'd most likely accomplish more of what they actually want to do.
However,
yeah, I was thinking about this morning. Yeah.
But don't you think that it matters more when we're younger because we're trying to establish ourselves?
Yeah, but I think it's this weird, from what I've seen from young folks who come in, right?
Yeah.
You establish yourself by doing the work.
Yeah.
And like I see people who come in, they're like, I want to be admin. You've been working for a year.
Yeah.
Right? Or I want this position of leadership. I want this. They want to jump to these particular events, but it's like, you haven't actually put in much work yet. But I feel like school, to a certain extent, because we do give awards for everything now and recognition for everything now, it almost gets people into this sense that, oh yeah, I should get recognition like almost instantly.
Yeah.
And I think that as you're younger, because you're looking for, I'm not going to do this work unless I get credit for it or unless I get recognition for it, you're also focused on the wrong thing. So you're not actually putting yourself into the work. You're focusing too much on what other people will think about the work you're doing instead of really just let me do this well, you know? And so I think as you get older, some people get it younger. I think that some people who, just know the work will show up, you know what I mean? If I get into this and stuff like that, or if I'm not, I can see a lot of people like, well, I didn't get credit for that, so why am I going to do that again? And it's kind of like, well, okay. But like when you're younger, other people, the older seniors do take the credit for the work. Like that's how it goes for a bit.
Chain of command.
But but like the ones who quit or give up never get to the point where they're there. You know what I mean? But I think that it's harder for younger people. And I think that sometimes older folks even haven't grasped it yet, like I know people who are like my age who still, they never ascend to a particular level because also eventually you're supposed to be contributing to, there's an expectation that you're also contributing to more than just yourself, which I do think also happens is people are like, but what about me?
Yeah.
And the more people you boost up, the more people who are on your team, the more people who you can share credit with overall, people know who leveraged it. You know what I mean? People know who and that's how you sort of build your credibility over time. But yeah, I just see a lot of young folks struggling with stuff, and it's kind of like, oh, how long have you been at that job?
Right.
Oh, it's 8 months, a year, or even 2 years, and they want like a management position. It's like, fool, you just got out of college, and college is nothing like work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I was just thinking about that.
I mean, I can't really attest to that, to be honest, because I haven't really worked in the corporate sector for that long. But I do think that our generation struggles with like delayed gratification in a lot of ways where, everything has to be spontaneous and instant. But I do think that, like, you know, sometimes there's nothing wrong with like being like, hey dude, you're doing a great job, like keep it up. Like you made real and a real impact on this project, you know?
I think that's the aspect of good leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so here it is. I feel like you can expect that because there's not that many leaders who do that.
Yeah.
There's not that many leaders who are good at their job.
Yeah.
And so what's within your control is to continue doing what you're doing because you know you're on some kind of path.
Yeah.
On the other side of that, leaders should know people do like appreciation and approval.
Yeah.
So if you can give it, you should give it. You know what I mean? So I think it's a two-sided coin. I guess.
Sure.
Yeah, I guess for me, I never expected it. And so I kind of always got boosted up because I just kept doing my thing. I kept doing my job and trying to just help out this, help out that, do that, and whatever. And I ended up getting somewhere because I was just like, yeah, these people probably ain't going to do that.
But, you know, I think it's really important to seek internal validation, except like besides external validation. Because, you know, you're not always going to get what you want. You're not always going to hear the things that people like you want people to say. But I think when I struggled with my internship, the thing that I struggled the most was that it was like talking to a wall when it was talking to management. Like I wasn't being heard. There was no reception to what I was saying. Sure. I was so hungry to just keep leveling up and learning more and more about what we were, you know, doing at the print shop. But it was like they also wanted the same goal, but they weren't trying to make it happen. And so all of that motivation and that hunger kind of just drifted away, and I ended up like getting so disappointed. And I feel like that disappointment, like while it is very like naive and you're young and you know it's not always gonna be that way, but it is crushing, and you're just like, dude, frick this, like I'm just gonna go somewhere else and find a new place that's like gonna give me the things that I want. But then it's kind of a repetitive cycle of the same things.
Right. Well, it's like this you're right 100%. I mean, one of the most de-energizing things in the world is to feel unsupported. Like, you know, to feel not just like unrecognized, but just like, okay, but at least support me here trying to grow. Right. It feels like you're not valued. But you're right. And like one of the things they were talking about, I was reading this, they were talking about people who have reached a particular level in their field or gotten like this award or this kind of recognition or these kind of things or achieved big things. It's something like only 6% of the like hundreds of thousands of like things they were looking at over the last like 40 years, only 6% of them had spent less than 10 years in their field.
Wow.
6%, right? But that's what everybody hears about.
Yeah.
But that's what everybody hears about. That's what everybody sees. So this perception is, well, shit, man. The actuality is, dude, you should be fucking grinding for about 10 years before you expect anything. You know what I mean? And actually, it's even more. Most people it's like 15 to 20, right, in an industry and stuff before they're like, you know, top tier or people are citing their shit and everything else. So there's a lot of time. That means there's a lot of time you're working at something before anyone sees it.
Yeah.
And you've got to be okay with that. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, 5 years, it seems like a long time until it's done. Until 5 years passes. And then it's like, oh, well, shit, that was only 5 years. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I do see what you mean. But I just can empathize with both situations, I guess, where it's it makes sense. But I remember being in that situation and being like, I don't want to stay here. Like, I really don't. Like, it's just stonewalled communication. Like, there's really nothing there. And go for it.
And I think that, like, what you're talking about, it's weird because we don't grow up around each other's generations anymore. Right?
Yeah.
So like they're talking about, like, why is it that younger and younger people are also just more and more anxious about their work and everything else? I think there's a few different things, right? There's the realities of the marketplace. There's just the hyper competition. There's whatever parenting styles. But I think also is there, how many older folks did you have who you could talk to who are like, well, in that case, man, just here's some perspective. Here's maybe something you could try. Here's this and the other, versus someone you might tell that to who just maybe your own age who's like, man, that's fucked up. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because if that's all you're getting, yeah, that's fucked up. Yeah. I see it all the time. Like the people come to me to like calm them down, but I see the teachers, even my own age, they'll go to certain people when they just want to get riled up. And then they'll come to me because I'm just gonna, let's bear it down here. But I think older generations do that for people.
But it's also difficult because I see it a lot in my sister's job where her managers are in tenured positions and they really kind of abuse their power where they do whatever they want. They take vacations and then they're saying that, oh, they forgot their equipment. And then it's just a lack of communication when it comes to 3-month projects that have like deadlines after deadlines after deadlines. And then they don't really want to grow their employees either because everyone's on a contractual position that could be terminated at any time. And then there's just all this like nervous energy of like, even if I do my work, even if I don't do my work, I'm probably not going to be here for a long time because they don't care about me, you know? And so like, there's this just like, it give me the information that I need in order to progress and make sure that this project gets done and so that I could cash my check. But then it's like, it's really just hard to care about your work at the end of the day.
I get you. But I think that's why people need coaches these days, or people are like coaching is a big industry these days because I do think there's a loss of like mentorship, right? Yeah. Especially because people used to go into the same industry as their parents.
Yeah, like, that's true.
People used to do the same kind of job as their parents. So you readily had someone who could talk to you about that particular job space and how things work and how things function. And so you could get some perspective or you could get some ideas. Right. But when you don't, and it's completely different, you don't have an older person who can talk to you about that particular job space. But the sad thing is, since the 1950s, they've been taking this data. What matters more than anything is likability. Really? Progression in industry since the 1950s, what matters most is, do you make the people in charge like you? It's a sad reality. Wow. But likability matters more than just about any other indicator inside an organization. And when you don't teach people that reality, when people don't have good people skills, when people don't know how to be honest without being a jerk, when people don't know how to tell their truth while at the same time knowing how to, navigate that, it's hard, it's difficult. But but everyone knows, I think, this empirically. You know someone who's probably smart who you didn't listen to because you don't like them.
Joseph Musa.
This kind of thing, right? And so I think that's another thing. And I think what's been, I think one of the reasons I'm glad to get out of this job, right? But what's also been just really painful to watch, to realize, and maybe makes me more of a robot these days. I don't know. But I made friends, right? So I made friends here.
Yeah.
And most of the time, for most of my career, I went home, I hung out with the kids. I didn't have very many friends.
Right.
And then this is the biggest group of friends I've had since I've been international.
Okay.
Because I'm not a big socializer. But everybody started coming over to our house during COVID. That's how that happened, right?
Yeah.
But because of that, I've been able to see, because I'm a boss also at work, I've been able to see multiple sides and then hear my friends and hear my friends tell the story to our other friends and know that that's not the whole story. Or you're missing a completely other, that's not how that was perceived. Or I was actually in that meeting. I saw those emails.
Yeah.
And it's not that. And so it's also this idea of knowing, I'm only hearing one side of anything and a perception.
Right.
Which I told Lyra, it'll be nice next year when I can just hear them and then just believe them because they're my friend.
Oh, that's so tough, Mr. C, to be in the middle
You know what I
like
mean?
that. Yeah.
And versus, I can't tell you and all my friends that actually our friend here wrote some really rude emails,
Right.
and that is not the intention that this person had, even though that's what's being said over here. And that person has come to me for advice because I also don't promote my friends. Like,
Right.
I've had some really tough friends because they thought when we became friends, oh yeah, I'm like, but you're not the best for this job. And that's
Yeah.
been really tough, right? But I've had to do that. And that's been a tough part. But the learning of that also has made me even more, okay, you're telling me this, but I don't necessarily know
You're
if
right.
this is the whole truth. So
Gotcha.
how can I help you? Right? I can't, it won't be helpful for me to start judging all those other people you're talking about because I don't really know them.
Yeah.
And I don't really actually know if your perception is actually what their perception is, or what
Right.
you think their intentions were their intentions.
Mm-hmm.
So what can you do? What can we do here? You know?
Right.
That's the thing.
That must be very uncomfortable.
It is. It is.
Yeah. Because then there's so much that you can't say. There's so much you can't say, so much you can't do. And that's
That's
already
right.
limited as the position that you're in anyway.
And it's weird because I can't even also pull my friend aside and be like you're
Yeah.
telling everybody about that, but you're not telling everybody the full,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. There's
And
some
stuff. And so
details that are missing. And
that's right. That's
that's
right.
so
You know?
uncomfortable, man. I mean, I'm glad that you're not going to be in that position anymore, which is something to look forward to. But going back to what you're saying about, like people who do like kind of generational, like, baton passing, like, oh, you open your father's shop, or, you do like the smithing, or, your mother teaches you how to do basket weaving and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's how things went for a long time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I see that kind of happening now within the expat communities where
Mm-hmm.
people who I grew up with are starting to do their father's jobs, their mother's jobs, because
Yeah.
they saw the life that their parents lived and they really liked it, they really enjoyed it, and now
Mm-hmm.
they're taking internships at like Aramco and all of these companies that their parents are taking, and I'm like, huh, interesting. We're all repeating, like, you know what I mean, like what our parents did was try to provide a life that was better for their children, right? So they're like the immigrants were first generation immigrants, and now that we've had that life, we're like, okay, our parents did it right, and now we're repeating it. And I just wonder how the next generation will perceive that, like our kids, and then what will they do, like, you know what I'm like, I really think about
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, I think that especially too, look, work is work, right?
Yeah.
Not everybody finds a passion or finds something that, man,
Yeah.
I really live for this and everything else. And I don't think everybody always has a clear idea of like, oh man, I really would like to do this. I'd really like to try this. And when you don't, do what someone else knows.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, when you don't, okay, then make your job a job. Get a job that, just that's where you feel comfortable, and there's
Yeah.
some safety in that. And I think that's okay. I think that's what some people end up choosing,
Yeah. And it's interesting because I was having a conversation. Oh, not a
Yeah, this should
conversation.
be the whole podcast.
Oh shit! I forgot we were recording. I just want to. I mean, we can end it if you want to, but it's
No. Let's keep talking. We could actually release clips of this. So
Okay.
this is not even. We weren't even making a podcast. This is just us talking. But this could be footage. This could be
Yeah,
hey,
why not?
exclusive stuff. Who
Why
knows?
not for the Patreon?
Yeah. What were you saying?
Oh, so Arham was talking on our group chat, and then he mentioned this thing where he was like, our parents did not give us the opportunities and the life that we live for us to be normal people. And I was like, I really believe that. Like, I really deep down in my heart, like that resonated with me, where I was like, my entire childhood, I was like, the life that I've lived so far is so abnormal, and the opportunities that I have been so grand and amazing, that if I just have a conventional job, I think that I would not only disappoint my family, but myself truly deep, deep down in my heart. And that
Yeah.
that is like something that is a true motivator for me. That I'm like, my parents did not sacrifice all that they had and the life that they were living in Pakistan and Philippines and migrating to America and then going to Saudi. Like, this was all for such a big reason. And if I end up working at a regular 9 to 5, flipping burgers, I think I would be very, very upset. And no fault to people who do that. That'd be like, props to you guys. But I think I'm not above it, but it's just like, I don't think I could ever imagine myself doing that.
No, I mean, yeah, you don't want to be, the idea is always that you at least want to be at least on the same level as your parents.
Yeah.
You don't want to go below. Yeah. Whatever, however you define that level.
But yeah, when he sent that, I was like, yeah, I believe that. I don't want to be normal. Whatever normal is, I guess.
Yeah, what is normal?
I mean, American? An accountant?
Is American normal? Most people think we're pretty abnormal.
Yeah, they don't really like us as much anymore. I think the image of the American dream, and you hear it a lot more, that they're saying that America is just a third world country and like a Gucci belt, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting because if you've been to a third world country, you're like, no, it's not.
But it's crazy because the things that our family left their countries for is what our generation is seeking now, which is more of a slow-paced life that isn't necessarily centered around success anymore. It's centered like it's more holistic, I guess, where we're seeking life balance more than money in a lot of ways. But there's also people who are like, oh, I just want to get rich quick and then retire early.
It's I think there's a whole lot of just for the younger generations, I feel like there's a lot of conflicting messages that make it very hard for that, because there's this, I want a holistic life, but there's also like an anti-family trend, or what do they call it, heteronormative behaviors, like getting married, having kids, all that kind of stuff. Even if empirically it seems that if you're in a good relationship and end up having a family, you seem to be happier over time.
For men,
women as well.
Yeah, but single women tend to have higher happiness rates than being.
Yeah, I saw that study. It's a bogus study. They got a lot of it's not peer reviewed and everything else. It got a lot of steam on social media, but actually the least happy category of women are single women in their 40s and 50s. So single women in their 20s and 30s tend to be, but single women in their 40s and 50s tend to be the least happy. Everything else. So
the cats don't do it.
There's a bump, but that's cool. But I mean, I don't think like you can be single and happy, but it takes a really you have to have like a good support friend system. Connection, a good support system and stuff like that. But I think the thing is the idea of, and it's harder for women because it's not, I think just this, from my perception, it seems that I think it's harder for women to try to do the thing that guys do of I'm going to work, do everything. And then when I'm like 35 or 40, I'll get married. Because for whatever reason, and I think there's a natural inclination for this, I do think that a lot of women, maybe not all women, there is probably something, it would make sense as an animal that there is some drive to procreate or something of the sort at some point in time in your life, maybe. Yeah. So, and oftentimes men don't date up. Do you know what I mean? Like, so the thing is, if you worked really hard and you're like, awesome, right? Or women don't date down. They don't want to date down. So if you're working real hard as a woman and you're like 35 years old, you're looking to get married, and you're like, you've been very successful in your industry. Yeah. There's a high likelihood that the guys your age are already married to someone younger.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And what's left for you is guys who aren't at your level and you don't want to actually.
So do you know what happened? Okay. So this is one of the funniest things that has happened in the SoCal Muslim community, in my opinion. So
Okay.
they have these singles events, okay, and they host them once, I think, like once annually. And I think a couple years ago they hosted the event, and there were a bunch of like super successful women, okay, top of their field, not only in STEM, but like women who are just like achievers, you know? And in our culture, success is dictated by money in a lot of ways and achievement through, you know, job and all that stuff. And there was just like a bunch of men who really didn't match their caliber in a lot of ways. And so there were so many complaints about that event. And like while the event was going on, and I think it got shut down while it was happening because all of these people were just so unhappy. And even the men were like unhappy too, because they're like, oh, these women, they don't want me. Like they just like, they're like, I'm not going to talk to that woman. She makes too much money. Like, you know what I mean? Like stuff like that. And so the event was like a failure, a huge like poo-poo caca. And I don't know if they did it again, but it was just like a huge thing in the community at that time. And I was just like, oh God, these poor, I just felt bad for everybody in this situation.
It's tough. I was looking at this like big data set on like Tinder, and it was showing that only like 4% of men get like 90% of the traction on Tinder, but 60% of women get some kind of traction.
Yeah.
And like all the cultural anthropologists and shit like that were going really crazy on this. They're like, this is exactly what our findings have been for centuries, you know, this idea. But this idea that the 4% of men who get all the traction, they usually are in finance where they have money.
Yeah.
They're handsome and then showing off like their bodies and stuff like that, right?
I hate that.
So the thing is, so what they're showing is that, so based on this data set,
yeah,
are women actually as deep as they claim to be? And what cultural anthropologists and evolutionary psychologists have said is not actually. Most of the drive to marry a man has been his ability to take care of and provide. And those are the men that are attractive on Tinder because you don't get to see, you don't know if the guy who's not so cute and has a middle job is funny, right? And he's not going to get a chance to make a stupid joke and charm you, right, on the Tinder.
Yeah.
However, men are just a bit more like, you know, like they're like, hey, I'll try. Yeah, hey, how you doing? How you doing? How you doing? And so
just trying to see if they can pull.
and men historically they don't mind as much trying, like they will date. The expectation is I might date someone who's not of my particular status, right? And they might marry up. The woman was that was the term, right? Marry up. We'll see if you marry up, right? Back in the day.
I just think that like it's just talk to people in real life. Like I don't know.
I agree 100% with you.
It's
but like, people have to go out. People have to actually go out, or we have to get into spaces where we do that more often. And I think less and less people are doing that, right?
Yeah, I don't really have reason to leave my house these days. Like at the most, it's like going to family parties, and I'm not gonna marry my cousin. I'm not that type of Muslim. Yeah. Actually, I was thinking about joining this thing called the Orange County Singing Group, and it's like a free choir, and you can just like go and like have fun. Like you don't have to participate if you don't want to. You can just like observe, and then they have like meetings all over LA, and then they have like performances at the end of whatever they're practicing. And I was looking though, and it's so cute. It's all these like grandmas and these little like, you know, these little Orange County little ladies, and then a lot of my, you know, gay homies, they're all up in there. just like a really interesting collective of people. But I really don't think I would find a husband there, if I'm being honest.
Do you have like do you have like a thing you're looking for with like a husband? Like, do you have he should ideally I'm thinking this and this.
Yeah, I think I thought I knew what I wanted. I know for sure that I do want someone who is kind of like ambitious, but like at this point, everything that I thought I knew and is just like kind of unraveling because I did have some prospects, like some suitor prospects, and like I just don't know men at all. And so now I'm just like kind of confused. All that I know about romance and like actual like female and male interaction is just through books and media. Like I don't know anything.
Okay.
So like everything that I think is literally just a romance novel. And that's not how men operate.
So you feel like you get displeased because you have some kind of unrealistic expectation, or what is that? What do you mean? What do you mean?
I guess it's disappointing, but it's also like I guess I wasn't expecting guys to be so like at least my age clueless. Like I didn't realize that I would have to be like someone who has to spell out everything to someone all the time. And then there's also this idea that if that person is the right one, it would just make sense, right? And it would just be easy. But I
Yeah.
don't feel like slowly I feel like if it's a relationship, you're gonna have to over explain a lot of situations. And it's not gonna be at one of the most difficult things that has happened to me is going okay, so this really credible scholar, his name is Omar Suleiman, and he said that romance is like rizq, and rizq in Islam is like it doesn't happen to everybody. So he dropped this bomb during Ramadan, and all the girls, Muslim girls, went crazy because they're like, I might not have romance in my life. And everyone was like, I would rather be single than die if I don't have romance in my life. People were like really, really upset because like a lot of these women just like wait for so long to find someone. And then that idea kind of just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It kind of
Yeah.
dissipates in the wind slowly.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, I do think, the romanticism, the romance movement, did raise sort of expectations, right? Around, because I mean, for most of our history and most of like even our old literature, usually the woman or the romance was not it was oftentimes the romantic partner was not the one you had to marry. It was usually like a lover or some other person who da da da.
Your father brought home.
Yeah, this kind of thing like that.
Or your cousin.
But I think like I don't know. I guess maybe not everybody does have romance, but I do think like people underestimate the value of having a friend, having someone who's a companion, having someone, because whatever way you cut it, humans weren't built to be alone.
Yeah.
Like we're a social animal. Like I mean, we're made to live in groups of people. So you can outsmart yourself and rationalize that. I think being lonely is hard. Being alone is hard, especially for your entire life,
Yeah.
So you want to have someone. And I do think like it might not be the person you marry, but man, I know, like, for instance, I know my family, we had spinsters. They used to call them spinsters, right?
Okay.
So they were ladies who never got married, like ladies in the family who never got married.
Okay.
But they lived together. These two spinsters, they were cousins.
Okay.
They were like my grandmother's cousins.
Okay.
It's by that. And but they like some of them. One of them was a teacher. Another one did some other job. I forget. And they were around. They came to family events. Sometimes they babysit kids. They did other little things, but they chose to live together.
Yeah.
After a while, because it's just
I used to joke with Maya about that. I'd be like, oh, if it doesn't work out, we'll just get a couple of cats and then be neighbors, and all that stuff. But I don't know. I guess I used to have this image of like, all I knew was what I didn't want, which was like someone who was Pakistani or Filipino. Because for me, all of these guys just kind of look like my cousins and my brothers. And I just get really like, especially when they have like the same name as like my cousins and brothers, like I don't really know how to fight that. Like the ick just comes and I'm like, I cannot look at you the same way. Like it just really bothers me.
Sure.
So, I mean, Allahu Alam, I could say all this and the contrary happens, but I don't know. Applications are open. I like it for me when I've come from. I've come from such a diverse background and such a diverse upbringing that like I really can't discount anyone. Like I really don't know that a certain type of person is better than the other, or I have preferences over another one, because like there are so many attributes that I can find in every single person. Doesn't matter what color they are, doesn't matter what culture they come from or religion they come from. It's just like yeah, sure, if it works, it works. So at this point I'm just like, yeah, I guess I'm just waiting to meet somebody. But I did find out that something that really turns me off is that if a guy doesn't want or like really is anti-education.
Anti-education.
Yeah, that's like, oh,
like
school system sucks and they don't care about kids, and you don't have to go to school to have to be successful. And I agree. But like, have a plan. The guy didn't have a plan. He was just saying it to say it because.
Yeah, man. I think that if you're saying education sucks, the school system's a trap, okay, that's what you believe. Yeah. But what are you reading right now?
Yeah,
like, what are you studying?
Exactly.
What are you like? How are you building your knowledge base?
What's
right?
your plan? What's
your plan? What are you working on?
As long as there was a plan, I would have been like, okay, this is a little more convincing. But at the time, I was like,
because okay. I greatly respect autodidacts. I think it's one of the reasons that maybe I'm a little bit weird for someone who's in education. If you ever just look up on Wikipedia autodidact, right? And just the list of people who are autodidacts, meaning self-taught, they learn on their own. They didn't go through a normal education route to do their thing. I mean, school actually we study a lot of those people and what they discovered. So the funny thing is that school is filled with studying people who didn't do school.
Yeah.
Right. And that's not always the case, but I'll tell you this. I think that most of the skills most people need to be successful in business, in learning, whatever they want to learn and getting good at it, are already solidified by the time someone gets out of high school.
Right.
If they've been working at high school. Because people always talk about people like Zuckerberg or Gates or these things because they didn't finish college. Like, see, you don't need school. Fool, they got into Ivy League colleges.
Yeah, they dropped out of an Ivy League college.
So that means they were really good at school already. And so I think the things that make you kind of good at school are you get stuff done, even if you don't want to.
Yeah.
Right? You're good at figuring out what needs to be done in order to reach this particular goal.
Yeah.
Right? And you know how to put your work habits in order, right? You kind of have, okay, this is how I'm going to get this done. And you organize yourself. And you know how to seek out information that you need.
Right.
Apply that to anything and you'll learn it. Right? And so I do think the skill of just liking learning, being good at learning, and then going and tinkering, because that's what you have to do too. You can't just read the book. You got to actually go and try stuff.
100%.
I think is widely applicable. And I think that,
for sure.
So, and I have a lot of respect for autodidacts. I think that people who are self-taught are the ones who are most likely to see something different, to bring a different viewpoint to something. Because in academia, usually you're being taught, because school's really what we're supposed to be doing is, even though we don't like to admit it, what we're supposed to be doing is just really teaching you what's already been discovered.
Yeah.
The job of a school
Yeah.
is to give you a basin education on what we know so far.
Yeah.
And providing you with that base so that hopefully those who are actually innovative and creative will take that further.
Yeah, you're not
And
reinventing the wheel. It's giving you a base that a foundation that you can work off of. Like I was not good at, for me, the biggest thing that I struggled with in school was taking tests. I could learn, I could tell you what I learned, and like one of the best ways to know if you've learned something is to teach it to someone else. I could do that. But when it came to test taking, I was so bad at taking tests that I would get like B's, and like it was just C's sometimes. Oh my God, C's. And it would just be really like disappointing.
I remember I saw you I saw you one time when you didn't get such a good grade. You were pretty distraught.
I was outside the LRC, dude. It was so funny because we were just, I think it was senior year. We were just hanging out in the LRC, and then I got a message on, I think it was like Skyward, right? Like or something. They updated the grade or something. I went to go look, and it was like the first C- that I've ever gotten in my high school career. And I was like, oh my God. And everyone was like, are you okay? Like, did something happen? And I was like, I need to step outside. I'll be right back. And then I just went outside, and I was like, oh my God. And I just like sat down in front of on that bench, and I like put my sweater over my head, and I just put my head down, and I just started crying. And then you and Miss C walked by me, and you're like, Noor, are you okay? And I was like, oh my God. I was like, what? Having a moment. And like, obviously it's like in front of this is not a private area. And then Miss C was so nice to offer me a hug, but I didn't know her. So I was like, no, thank you. But damn, that was devastating. But then I got a C after that as well. So then I was like, fuck it, whatever. Like, I'm just going to settle for a C, and C is getting degrees. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and it's the hardest thing to like explain to like a high schooler. This is not that big of a deal. You're going to be okay.
And what also really helped me at that time was when I came home and I told my parents, I was like, hey, I didn't do well on this test. And I was like, honestly, I feel like I tried really hard. Like I did study for that test, and I thought I understood what was going on, but apparently like it was the very contrary to that. Okay. And my dad was like, you know what? If you say you try your best, okay. He's like, just try again next time. He's like, you already know what to do. This is your senior year of high school. He's like you've done this for like 4+ years now. So like he's like, I can't tell you anything different than what you already know. And I was like, okay. And I mean, I still tried. I still got a C. But like at that point, I was like, I'm gonna graduate anyway. Whether or not I have a C. And I already knew that I wasn't a STEM focused girly pop anyway. Like,
sure.
So that was that. But that was like really helpful. I really appreciated that from my dad.
Oh, that's good. Sometimes you just need that. I mean, I think that's what older generations or people can provide most oftentimes is perspective.
Yeah.
Because especially for young folks, because it does seem so hard, man, when you're starting off and you're going through and it feels like stuff's not happening fast enough. You feel like every little thing is like world ending. And when you're kind of a little older, you can at least be like, if you're being honest with them, you're like, it's hard, but it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Like it feels that way now, but you can make it through. And even though that might not be what they're ready for yet, it's okay for a young person to be like, I know, but I'm just not there yet. That's all right.
Yeah.
But it's just having someone who reiterates that to them because, it's good. And to know someone's going to be there regardless.
Yeah.
Is that something? Go ahead.
Seriously, do you remember when we first started working together and you said something to me that really like shook me? It was like, there was this one day where you were like, you always act like you did something wrong. And I was like, oh, do I? And like, I know that I'm not doing anything wrong, but I always like, there was so much anxiety in starting this process with you that I was like, oh my God, like, this is his livelihood. Like, Nick, don't fuck it up. Like, if you make him look bad, like, he's gonna fail. Like, everything that people see about him is on your shoulders. Like, you need to figure this out. And I've never done this before. Like, I've never created like an entire brand by myself. Like, I've always had like a mentor or something, someone to like, tell me if I need to fix something. And so whenever you would, honestly, Mr. C, whenever you would text me and be like, hey, because I know that there's a generational gap in the way that we text too.
Yeah,
Because sometimes it's really scary when you just go, hey, or K. And I'm like, I did something wrong.
Oh, yeah. Because when I say hey, I'm like, hey, what up? Like,
that's not what I saw. When I saw hey, it was like, hey. And in my head, I was like, I'm gonna die. And then you'd be like, I don't know why you always think that you're doing something wrong, but that seems to be the case. And I was like, damn, I have to slow down. I was like,
relax.
it's not that serious. And it also helped because to you it never really was that serious anyway. Like your actions also proved to your word. So I was like, oh, it's safe here. I can flourish, maybe.
We just gotta, man. You just gotta try things, and I think is that I just know that you mess up, right?
Yeah.
And there's very few things that are actually world destroying or world ending, and especially in this process. I mean, I am who I am, so how are you gonna make me look bad? I mean, that's just. Okay, if I look bad at somebody, I look bad at somebody, but this is who I am, so we're gonna go with that, and it's fun.
But
I really enjoy working with you.
Oh, thank you. That took a long time for me to convince myself, where I was like, oh, people like working with you. It's not just DEFCON 5 all the time, like DEFCON 1, DEFCON 5, I don't remember. But oh, man, it's just like I think it's not even, because going back to your initial point where it's like, people who seek validation, right? Mm-hmm. The whole thesis of this podcast.
this conversation that became the podcast. We actually had a different topic. Go ahead.
It was supposed to be like culture vultures, something completely different than this.
Culture appropriation. Instead, we just talked about this. All right, cool.
But it's that for you, like saying that to me wasn't even validation. It was an observation, but it was an observation that was like that showed that you're actually paying attention to what I do. Like you're actually paying attention to the habits that I'm doing, the kind of routine that we've created. And like that in itself is a form of feedback to me where I'm like, like, oh, okay, he's not criticizing me. He's not even, saying something positive, but it's just an observation. And that data was important. Like that really changed a lot of gears in my head and the way that I functioned.
Yeah. Oh, I appreciate. Yeah. I mean, I think I've told other people that it's something that I've learned to do is to let people know what I observe, because also I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Right. So this idea that I could be wrong. So with that, it's kind of like, you seem like you feel like you're in trouble or something. To me anyway. And then for you to tell, and it leaves the door open for you to say, no, I'm not like that. Or it leaves the door open for you to say like, well, yeah, sometimes I'm thinking that way. Yeah. So then we can have a conversation. Yeah. Right. And everything else. And, or you can just know through my question, you're not in trouble, but it seems like you're thinking that. Is everything all right? Or and then it was also for you to give me feedback on, like you told me about K. You told me about that K is not like, you told me, you're like, well, when you do K is like K, and everything. I was like, oh, I didn't even know that. Okay. So I try to make sure to put okay,
And it's true. Ever since I said that, you don't do it anymore. And it really makes me feel better. Because honestly, when you would be like, "Okay," I'd be like, "Oh my God, he's mad. Like he's pissed. Like But then I also had to put in perspective. I'm like, okay, my dad also does K. It's just like a middle-aged man thing. You know what I'm saying?
Old fogies, I guess. Yeah.
Because
For
Mr.
sure.
Mulak did it to me too, where he's like, K.
Okay.
And I was like,
Okay.
what
Yeah,
I
generational.
do? Yeah.
But you know what? We're open for that generational exchange of ideas here.
You know we're matching today?
Oh yeah, look at that inadvertently. You're looking sharp, Nor. You're looking sharp. You're always
because
snazzy.
I'm rocking the Mr. C look. I matched the background color to my shirt. I can also
That
do
wasn't.
a green.
Oh, look at you. There ain't no battery in
Yeah. Hey,
that.
I can do it. It can change colors.
Oh Lord. Ooh.
Yeah. What you know about this?
Can't believe we're recording this. This is gonna be our podcast.
Can we even publish this? I don't even know.
Yes, of course. Why not? Let people see. Hey, this is just us talking, okay, podcast world?
And you know what's crazy is like we actually work like this. Like we actually do work, and then it's just I feel like it's just fun, and it's so different from what I see with my sister, and I feel really bad because it's like at the end of her day, she's like, brain dead. But after I'm done working with you, I'm like, oh, I feel like I could like have some more fun. You know what I'm saying?
Make it happen. Make it happen.
Like my brain's still working, but yesterday was a lot of work. I would say.
Yeah, it was a bit. Yeah.
After that, I was like, I have to go to sleep. It was 1 a.m.
Like doing the cap cut and the Patreon and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. You didn't laugh at the video that I sent you.
But the video you sent me of which one?
The guy, they pushed him on the ground.
Oh. I was like, are we supposed to be laughing at that? I felt bad for the guy.
Okay, there we go.
I felt bad for the guy. Well, because
they're like, get the shit out of here. That's not funny. That's hilarious.
You're so mean, Nor. You're so mean.
Okay, obviously they're his friends, and that was a bit. There's no way that he was actually knocked out.
Yeah, but he was face down on the concrete. Oh, jeez.
I watched it like 5 times before I went to bed because it was too good.
Oh man.
Anyway.
But hey, my wife is home from Edinburgh, so
yay!
I gotta get going and go spend some time.
That's a-okay. Tell her I said hello. She and I have been doing our own thing.
Oh yeah, y'all been like coordinating and everything. Oh, and I want to send you this video because someone had mentioned to me about how so someone basically had said that they find ways in which maybe I do make or have made bosses or certain people intimidated or insecure. Okay. And I was like, oh man, I don't even intend to do that or anything else. And they're like, no, it's not an intentioning, but I think that it's that it might be something. And then they referenced me to this little episode, like a YouTube episode. Mm. So I want to send it to you. I want you to look at it. And then I want you to be like, because I looked at it, I was like, oh, maybe I am kind of intimidating. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
you are.
How am I intimidating? Oh, okay.
I have to watch that video, Mr. C. It's not like it's not like chaotic evil. Like I feel like at times you're chaotic good. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And like paladins, they have like the sense of righteousness where it's sometimes it's hard to it's hard on the palate sometimes where like sometimes you do want to be a little bit evil, a little bit mischievous, and then you're just like, oh man, I don't know if I could tell him to see this because like he's just gonna be like, well, according to Democritus and all this stuff. And I'm like, but it's not a bad thing. Like if anything, I should probably be a better person, right? But like, I'm just saying sometimes it's just hard to like just be passively,
Hey, I have my bumps and bruises too. I mean, I make mistakes. You've been in my house, you know me.
Of course.
But
This is not an attack on your character, but it just happens sometimes. And you can see in the podcast that sometimes I'll like try to justify what I say before I get to my point, because I'm like, I don't want him to think that I'm a bad person. But it's honestly like it's not a bad thing. Like it just is. It's just one of those things.
All right. Well, I'm still gonna send you the video. 8 minutes. It's 8 minutes long.
I'll watch it. As long as it's not an hour. Oh my god.
It's not an hour. It's like 8 minutes long.
Thank God. Okay.
And then you tell me. They say there's 8 signs, or like the video's like there's 8 signs that your strong personality could be intimidating. And so I want you to look at it, and I want you to be like, yeah, that one, or none. You know.
What are you gonna do with this information?
When I was watching it, I was self-reflecting on like, yeah, I do think some of those, yeah. And then, but I want to know if I'm just self-reflecting that and thinking that because, you know, someone else told me to watch it, but I also want, you're someone who works closely with me in a different context. I want you to tell
confirmation
me
bias type of stuff.
Yeah. Get some feedback from you as well.
Okay, Mr. C.
All right.
The fate of your life is in my hands.
Oh, geez.
All right, guys. Thank you for joining us. I was your host, Noor Sultan.
And I'm Ronnie Caldwell, Mr. C.
All right. Thank you. And tune into the next one. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.